Oh, thanks so much. I have had a great day with Coach Anderson, the staff, and the players, and it warms my heart, to come back home, really. Rockland County is not exactly my home. I grew up in Brooklyn, but I coached at Manhattan College. The guy at that table there, Bob Burns, hired me as a 33-year-old whippersnapper. I found out later that 80% of all Manhattan College graduates live in Rockland County. So it's kind of homecoming for me. Pat, congratulations. Gordy told me all about you. And he said that when you grew up in Brooklyn, if you went into a tough neighborhood to go to a playground, and we used to do that in my neighborhood. We'd go to West 4th Street. We'd go to the cage and play. And he said you'd want Pat McFadden on your team. And I know how much you appreciate what Gordy did for you, and want to congratulate you. I've got some kind of homecoming again for me. Chris Fallon, who's been great to me all those years at Madison Square Garden. Thank you, Chris. Mr. and Mrs. Jack Powers over there, sitting there. I'll get to Bob Burns in a second. Some other friends. I know Kevin Houston is here. We have mutual friends from years and years of the basketball world. Sammy Albano and Ronnie Niclario, who I've known since I was a young coach, young assistant coach, I'm sure, somewhere. Ronnie, probably Ohio University, right?
New York Tech.
Yeah, New York Tech, sure. And Dr. Fitzpatrick, I know you had mixed emotions last year when Stack beat St. John's.
Not too mixed.
And I got it. Okay. Guess what? Me neither. I remember watching that game, and I was like, oh, I hope they get up over 20 because Big East officials are going to kill these guys, And I kept watching, and I realized they're rebuilding over there. But that was my first experience with watching Coach Anderson's team play. And, of course, Gordy Chiesa and I have known each other so long. And I remember when he coached at Stack, I was a young coach, and I can't remember where I was, but it was probably just starting out. And so I watching that game that night and was just absolutely blown away. But in a way I wasn't, because I'm old school, and I love basketball, and I don't care if you play in Madison Square Garden or Dratty Gym or the gym that the Spartans play in. Basketball is basketball. The truth is on the court, I always say. The lines are 94 by 50, and it doesn't matter what your press clippings are, where you're ranked, what league you're in, what division you're in. You can either play or you can't, and I was really impressed that night. And it's part of the reason I'm here, because I did want to help honor this 2016-2017 season. Now, before we get started, and I'm going to direct my talk tonight, if you don't mind, to the players, because I know there's a lot of high expectations in the room, and rightfully so. But I just want to tell you about Bob Burns, my boss at Manhattan College, who hired me in 1992. I was a 33-year-old assistant at Providence College, and Brother Thomas Scanlon and Bob were two of the best bosses you could have. I'll never forget when I was offered the St. John's job, and I took it, and I was like the fifth choice. Okay, I was like they tried to get John Calipari, Majerus, all those guys, and I wound up being offered a job and taking it. And so we had a meeting with my team at Manhattan, and my wife came with me, and we wanted to say goodbye. And our meeting was up on the third floor of the Dratty Gym where my office was, and never forget coming down the steps after telling the guys that I was leaving and going to St. John's. And I told my wife, I said, we just had the best 4 years of our coaching career. And it proved to be prophetic. No ill will intended towards St. John's or the University of New Mexico, where I was in witness protection for 3 years. My mom's still in Brooklyn. She goes, I need a passport, Franny. I said, no, Mom, it's New Mexico. You're okay. I was worried when a guy opened up a pizzeria out there and he was from the Bronx. I said, I think this guy's in witness protection too. But in 1995, we had this great team at Manhattan College. I had great kids. And by the way, Steve Lapis, who's lived in Pearl River, right, guys? Steve left me a great team that I inherited. And I couldn't really screw that up. But as I built my own philosophy and my own culture at Manhattan, we had a terrific group. And of course, in 1995, we beat Oklahoma in the NCAA tournament. And it was a great thrill for the Manhattan College, back page of the New York Post, St. Patrick's Day, the headlines were in green, as I recall. And so that spring, I get offered, and they were very clear, Brother Thomas and Bob, that we love having you coach here. You know, my contract was 2 pages. You know, nowadays you hear about these big coaching contracts, and they got to bring lawyers in, and I'm sure Tobin's got a 2-page contract. I'm just guessing, right? 1 page, okay. And so, you know, I wasn't making a ton of money at Manhattan, but I was absolutely appreciative of everything that Bob did for me. And I get offered the Tulsa job. Tubby Smith, the great coach at Tulsa who went on to Georgia and Kentucky, leaves Tulsa, and my wife's from Dallas. Now, I didn't spend that much time there by that point in my life. Now I've lived in Dallas 14 years, and I'm like, I pay taxes in Oklahoma because I do the Big 12. But at that time, I didn't know much about Tulsa, so I go to Bob and I said, Bob, I'm offered this job, and they're going to pay me like 4 times the money that you guys are. What do you think? Can you give me a raise or something? And he said, well, let me get Brother Thomas, and we'll go have dinner. And we went to Dobbs Ferry. Is the Chart House still there? Okay, so we went to the Chart House, and my wife was anxious because, you know, this is a career move. And we have a lovely dinner. And I got to tell Tulsa the next morning whether I'm coming or not. And I had swordfish. I'm not sure what you had, Bob. But Brother Thomas and Bob were clear. They said, we love what you've done. You're a great ambassador for the school. We love we love your kids. We love how hard you play, how you're student athletes. You represent the school. As you know, we're probably not going to be able to give you a raise, but you can stay as long as you want. You know, we hope you never leave, but we know you're going to leave someday because, you know, you're on the hot coaching track thing. And so I said, Bob, I get it. And he said, well, just tell me tomorrow what you're going to do. And my wife was waiting, you know, hoping that we'd either go to Tulsa or get this raise from Manhattan. I get home, she's waiting. I lived in White Plains. And she said, how'd it go? I said, oh, man, the swordfish was unbelievable. She goes, we're staying. I go, yeah, we're staying. But Bob was really the best boss I've ever had. And he knows that, and I've said it many times. I want to talk to the team tonight about having a championship game plan. Now, I realize how good the year went last year with 21 wins and in a row, and then, you know, the season didn't quite end the way you wanted, and now the expectations, the rankings, all that stuff's coming your way. And I want to really direct this talk to the guys. And if anybody out here can glean anything out of it that'll help you, that'd be great too. I think there's 5 things you got to do when you have a championship game plan, guys. Number 1, you got to have a championship vision. You got to begin with the end in mind. Okay, I remember my first year at St. John's. They hadn't been to the NCAA tournament in 5 years. And our first team meeting, we were 186 days away that night we met in September from Selection Sunday. And nobody had been to the tournament. And of course, St. John's, as you know, Doctor, had great tradition. When you were there, it was a common occurrence. And so I said, I want you to know what it's like to go to the NCAA tournament. We're going to go downtown to Manhattan. We're going to go to the All-Star Cafe on Selection Sunday. We're going to sit in that big room with the big screen. Up on the screen it's going to say St. John's, the number 5 seed, is going to play the number 12 seed, Idaho State in Chicago. And I told my guys, I said, we're going to have chicken wings there. And I said, what do you guys want to eat that night? And they said, Coach, potato skins, chicken wings, barbecue sliders. I said, we're going to have all that. Okay, and we're going to be there that night when they put our name on the screen. And I said, then we're going to get on a plane the next day and we're going to fly to Chicago. And because we're going to be playing a first opening round NCAA game. And we're going to get there, we're going to practice at the United Center where the statue of Michael Jordan is. And we're going to go out to practice, and as you're coming on, UCLA's coming off for their 1-hour practice that you get at the arena. And you're going to know guys from playing AAU, you're going to be slapping 5 with guys, and then Jim Nance is going to want to interview Bill Raftery, the whole deal, and we're going to enjoy it. And so I created this vision for them. And I gave them T-shirts that night at the first team meeting in September. It said Club 186. And I told them, I said, you're not to tell anybody on campus what this means. And if you tell anybody, if they ask you, say, I can't tell you, I'll have to kill you if I tell you, okay? So we had that little running joke, but we created a championship vision. And sure enough, as the season went on, and Coach Anderson, you know those days, the dog days of January and February, it'd be a cold, rainy day in Jamaica, and the guys would come lumbering out onto the court, getting ready to stretch, and I would go, oh man, I can smell those chicken wings. And they'd start to laugh. You know, they kind of knew what I was doing because I had created that vision. And, you know, sure enough, We start the Big East 0-3, and we end up 13-5. And we play Connecticut for the regular season championship of the Big East. We go to the Big East tournament. We play one of the great games in Big East history, the overtime game with Syracuse. And then we went to the tournament. And I calculated this, guys. You guys are 150 days away from winning a Division II championship, okay? And what's going to happen is after you get past the Sweet 16, am I right, Coach Anderson? Elite 8? I believe it's in Sioux Falls this year, okay? So you guys, you're going to fly from LaGuardia to Minneapolis. You'll change planes and you'll land in Sioux Falls. You're going to be staying at the Sheraton, Sioux Falls, okay? You gotta begin with the end in mind. That's my point, okay? And the Pentagon. I've been in the Pentagon, Stanford Pentagon. That's what it's called, Stanford Pentagon. It is a great building. It holds about 5,000, and it'll be packed. There'll be 8 teams, and you're going to be expected to play in the semifinal, West Liberty, but they get upset by Queens. Queens University from Charlotte upsets them in the semis, and you've won your semifinal game, and now you're going to play Queens for the whole ball of wax on CBS. Okay, so that's 150 days away, and the reason I mention that to you is because you got to begin with the end in mind. You got to have a championship vision. That is the first thing. Second thing you got to do is you got to share the vision with each other, your teammates, and your coaches. Bear Bryant once said, the great football coach at Alabama, surround yourself with people who your success means something to. Okay, and it's not just, how much credit Justin gets for being an All-American preseason, because that's not what it's all about. It's about how you each play your role so that you each help the Spartans get to the national championship. And you got a deep team. I watched it today. You play a fun style, okay? I hope you all can hear me in the back. Can you hear me? Raise your hand. Okay, you play a fun style, okay? I want to tell you one quick story about my Manhattan team. And Bob's never heard this story. We were 20-3, and it was late February, and we were rolling. That was the year that we beat Oklahoma. And I told my coaching staff, I said, I want to give the guys a day off today, but I don't want to let them know. Coach, you'll like this. Where are you? You'll like this. I said, we're going to go out and practice, and 5 minutes in, I'm going to make something up, and I'm going to lose my mind like Gordy used to, okay? And so Tariq Thacker, my point guard from All Hallows, he throws the ball out of bounds, and I go nuts. Now, remember, I wanted to give him a day off, but I didn't want him to think they should be satisfied. So we were going to practice, and I came up with a cockamamie way to kick them all out. So I go nuts, I put this act on, and I kick them all out, and I say some things that Gordy used to say, that I can't. No, I know. I know. I'm okay, Doc. I'm reformed, Dr. Fitzpatrick. I one time cursed at St. John's at practice, and one of our priests came over, and we had a water break, and I went over to the priest, and I said, Father, I'm so sorry. And he goes, I've heard voice. So, and Louis. But so anyway, I kicked my guys out of practice just to give them a day off. And I leave to go up to the office, and my coaches come up with me, and they're kind of like laughing, like, Coach, that was a great act. That was fun. And 5 minutes later, the managers come in, and they go, Coach, they're practicing. And I said, what do you mean they're practicing? And one of the managers said, they're not leaving. They're practicing by themselves. And my assistant coaches said, should we go down there? I said, no, it's not our team anymore. It's their team. Okay, and there's comes a point in the season, guys, where you have to share the vision with each other. You got great leadership in Coach Anderson and the coaching staff, but it's got to be about you guys taking ownership of your team. That make sense? You got to take ownership of the team. So you got to have a vision. Yep. You got to have a vision, and then you got to share the vision with each other, okay? The third thing you got to have is you got to set a high standard, okay? Willie Mays, a great baseball player. A lot of people in this room, my age and a little older, who remember Willie Mays. Maybe the best baseball player ever, maybe. Some people think so. Willie Mays said, it's not hard to be good from time to time in sports. What's really hard is being good every single day. And that's what championship teams are. They're good every single day. Even when they don't want to be out there, they know they have to work at it. I used to tell my team, and watching you guys, Coach, I'm going to give you a saying. I used to tell my team, don't get bored if you're getting better. Okay, you guys are going to do the same drills, the same pressing drills over and over every day the next 150 days. You don't get bored if you're getting better. Okay, coach has set a high standard for you. There's a lot of responsibility. You got to make sure that you have ownership of this team, and you have to also understand that I think I'm a guy that I didn't invent anything in basketball, but I think I'm one of the guys that learned. I think I said this first about 15 years ago. Playing hard is a skill. Now everybody on TV and every coach at the clinic says that. Playing hard is a skill, but it's true. If every single guy in that back of that room there would decide they were going to play as hard as they could every day, your team would be 15 to 20% better automatically starting tomorrow, no matter how many basketball drills you do the rest of the year. Playing hard is a skill, all right? And it's something I think you got to lock into. I was coming up, I was traveling this summer out of Dallas, and reading the Dallas Morning News, and I hear this story. It was like July 5th or 6th about a West Texas cattle baron. And I'm from Brooklyn, so I don't know much about cattle, and probably nobody in this room does either, okay? But this guy threw a party on the 4th of July. He had this incredible ranch out there with hundreds and hundreds of herds of cattle. He owned oil wells. And he had this big barbecue on the 4th of July for everybody in this small town where this wealthy rancher lived. And at the end of the afternoon, as the sun was going down, he brought everybody out to this giant pool, this 50-yard Olympic-sized pool that he had filled with alligator and crocodile that he had imported from Florida that hadn't eaten in 2 weeks. And he brought all the young men around the pool, and he said, guys, I love bravery. I love people who are courageous. If anybody's willing to jump in this pool and swim from one end to the other, I will give you my daughter's hand in marriage, which, by the way, will come with all that cattle and the oil, right? 1,000 head of cattle. I'll give you one of my oil wells. And with that, a splash. And there's a young guy that jumps in, and he is weaving and bobbing in and out. You know, those crocodiles are cracking, and they can't get him. And he finally gets to the end of the pool, and they help him up. And the rancher said, son, that was the most amazing act of courage I've ever seen. Do you want my daughter's hand in marriage? Would you like the cattle, or would you like an oil well? And the young man said, I just want to find out who pushed me in. Okay? Now, here's the moral to the story. In order to be great, you need a little push. Okay? And that's called coaching. All right? Coaching is giving you guys a little push. And I know Coach Anderson will push. Okay? The fourth thing, in order to have that championship game plan, is you better expect adversity, okay? Adversity is coming your way. You guys are young. You don't remember, most of us in here remember when Mike Tyson was the undefeated champion of the world, and he looked like he was never going to be beaten, am I right? Right? He was knocking guys out in the first round. And every time he fought the bum of the month, and they had the press conference, the opponent would say, well, they say, what's your game plan to beat Mike Tyson? He said, well, I'm going to dance here. I'm going to stick and I move to my right. I think I'm quicker, and then I'm going to move to my left. I'm going to jab, get away, and hopefully I can beat him on points. And he gets done, and they asked Mike Tyson about the opponent. And they asked him what he thought. And Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Okay? And you guys are going to get punched in the mouth. Okay? You're going to get punched in the mouth. And it might be a 2-game losing streak. It may be a buzzer beater on the road where you thought you were going to win by 20 and you got beat. It might be an injury. It might be team chemistry not as good as it normally is. It might be struggling in school academically for some of you individually. You're going to face adversity. You got to make it your friend. I used to tell coaches at clinics, I still do, the number one job description of a college coach is crisis management coordinator. Okay, it's not coaching or recruiting. And when it comes to having a championship team, you got to know how to handle adversity. Billie Jean King was a great tennis player, one of the great tennis players of all time. And they asked her after her first U.S. Open about pressure. And she said, pressure is a privilege. And pressure comes to those who much is expected of. And so, yeah, there's going to be pressure on you guys because you're ranked where you are and you're coming off of a great season. Embrace the pressure. Embrace it. Embrace adversity. Make it your friend, because over the course of a long season, it's going to happen, okay? So here's what we got with the championship game plan. You got to have a championship vision. You got to share it. You got to set your standard high, and you got to expect adversity. The last thing I'm going to leave you with tonight is you guys here at Stack, you leave a championship legacy behind. Hopefully you'll win that championship, okay, in 150 days. I'll be watching on TV, okay, as you guys cut down the nets. But I have a feeling, based on what I've learned today in my day at Stack, that you guys are going to be champions anyway because of the fact that you're here at a great institution, you're getting a great education, you're playing for great coaches, and you have a chance to do some special things. To me, legacy is simply about something that's handed down, okay? I bet a lot of and I know there's some parents in here tonight, okay? Be proud of your name, okay? And make them proud of you. Make them proud of you because of the kind of people you are, because of the kind of students you are. That legacy is important, not only here at Stack, as you leave and come back like Pat did tonight, like Mr. McFadden, okay? But it's important to you, to your family. And it'll be important to your kids when you're able to bring them back here and say, I got my degree from here, I played basketball here, and I helped them win a championship, okay? A lot of people in this room have been, and we got great basketball people in here. A lot of people in this room can't pay back the people that helped us. They can't pay back because they're no longer with us, okay? I wish I could pay back my dad for raising 7 kids and working 3 jobs so that I could have a job as a coach and as a broadcaster where I literally have never worked a day in my life. Okay, seriously. My wife says at ESPN, they don't pay you to work, they pay you to travel. You know, my biggest pressure right now at the end of a big game is, man, I hope Outback's open till 10, okay? But you guys aren't going to be able to always pay back the people that help you, your parents, your grandparents, your coaches. Learn to pay forward, okay? That's what a lot of people in this room have done. They have learned to pay forward and help guys like you. And I try to do that whenever I can because I know how lucky and blessed and favored I've been. So I want to leave you with that. Leave a championship legacy behind, okay? 150 days between tonight and the championship game of Division II in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Don't waste a day of practice. Don't waste a day in the classroom that sets you back so that you have to maybe miss a practice. And don't waste a day working on great chemistry with each other, okay? And I'm going to be pulling for the Spartans all year long. You know I'm going to be tweeting about you, and if there's a big win along the way, I'm going to be on TV saying, hey, you know, I know we're doing Kansas, Oklahoma tonight, but you know, the Spartans are 19 in a row now, and they're #1 in the country in Division II. My guys from Rockland County. All right, so I'm going to be pulling for you. And again, it's great to be back. I appreciate the rest of us in the room to let me give these guys a chance to give them a pep talk. And I wish the team, Coach Anderson, all the best. And thanks for having me. I am back home. I got to see some people that I truly care about, and great to see everybody here tonight. Thank you.